Hi, everybody. My name is Jill Fisher, and I'm an Associate Institutional Relations Director for the University of Minnesota Learning Abroad Center. Today, we have a special presentation for you. You're going to be hearing about our MSID Thailand program, and you'll be hearing directly from our Program Director based at the LAC, Vanessa Walton, and our Resident Director, Dr. Mark Ritchie, based in Thailand. Enjoy.
My name is Vanessa Walton, and I'm a Program Director in the Learning Abroad Center. I've been working with this program since it first started in fall 2015.
My name is Mark Ritchie. I'm the Resident Director for the MSID Thailand program. I've lived and worked in Thailand for over 20 years. A lot of my background is in development and development studies, as well as designing and creating really interesting experiential learning programs.
So typically we like to start with, in terms of talking about the MSID Thailand programs, is providing a little bit of history and background. So the MSID program as a model has existed for quite some time. We actually celebrated the 35th anniversary of the MSID program as a suite of programs back in 2017, I believe. It was started by a University of Minnesota faculty member, and one thing I like to tell a lot of people is we like to describe it as being essentially like a mini Peace Corps, because it has its roots in that. If you look at going back to when the program first started, it actually was started by some returning Peace Corps volunteers. Throughout all of the programs, and there are 4 different sites, as you might know, there's Kenya, Thailand, Senegal, and Ecuador. We do have these same learning outcomes all throughout. We have the same mission all throughout. It's just with the different sites, it allows for us to be able to focus now on certain regional specializations while still focusing on the MSID mission. We also have these lifelong habits that exist for each of the programs. So no matter which site you're operating at, all of the curriculum, all of the excursions, any development that's happening on site is developing with these habits in mind, with the hope that students come off the program having gained these habits while they've basically been pursuing their program abroad for a full semester. And I think most students will find that what I think is really unique about the MSID program is, yes, they certainly accomplished those learning objectives that we saw on the previous page. They certainly developed these habits, but I think more than any other program that I've worked with in the Learning Abroad Center over the last several years, I think these students really take this experience and it goes through and influences what they end up doing later on in life. So many MSID students end up going on and either going back to work in the countries that they've worked in. I think we have several MSID Thailand students who are alumni who are now living in Thailand. Many students go on and do the Peace Corps, or they go and pursue graduate research studies that are related to some of the things that they focused on. So I think I see that more, and certainly in the MSID suite of programs, more than any other program. So I was asked to talk a little bit about MSID Thailand participants. And Mark, I think this will be great for you to chime in too, especially since you're working with the students on site. We do certainly for the MSID Thailand program find that we get a wide variety of majors, but certainly we get a lot of strong numbers from sustainability studies, agricultural studies, environmental studies, basically anything involving sustainability. We certainly get a lot of design and architecture students now. We'll talk a little bit more about why some of that is. I think a lot of that has to do with Mark's, basically the program center and things like that. And certainly we do get more pre-health students. The program is open to juniors and seniors. We have in the past had some students who've been second semester sophomores that we've occasionally let on the program. One reason we stick to juniors and seniors is that we are operating in developing countries. The content is a little bit more advanced, and so we prefer students who are a little bit more advanced in terms of their studies, just so that we think they're a bit more ready for the experience. I think another really unique thing about the MSID Thailand program is just the demographics that we get on the students, of students who participate. We tend to have a pretty high level of Hmong students. And for those of you who don't know, the Hmong are an ethnic group that come from Southeast Asia. They came to the United States as refugees. We have a very large, I think the largest Hmong population in the United States, based in the Twin Cities, especially St. Paul specifically. And so we get a lot of these students who are going back and interested in going back to Thailand because they have families who've come through that area through refugee camps.
Just a little story about that first year. One day, a pickup truck rolled up with a whole bunch of Hmong people on it. And it turned out that one of the Hmong students, our first year, it was her aunt, it was her mom's sister. And when they had fled Laos, one of them had ended up in a refugee camp. They both ended up in refugee camps. One ended up resettling in the Twin Cities, and one ended up settling in northern Thailand. And so this Hmong student comes on the program and basically meets this huge number of cousins in the first week of the program that she'd never met before. It's pretty cool.
So this first video that's on here has Madonna. Madonna is part of that first group of students that went over. Here, she's talking a little bit about her experience in Chiang Mai.
I lived in the city all my life, so we're actually at a forest reservation. So it's really different. We went on a 2-hour hike, which was really different from what I'm used to.
It is the top of the holy forest, and that tree is Chima Wallachii that the villagers select to be a holy tree. They believe that this tree can protect their village. Every year on the Hmong New Year, actually, they have some celebration here.
Oh wow!
Up here.
Coming here to Chiang Mai, I didn't know that a lot of the Hmong people that live here, they have to change their name to Thai, so you kind of don't know who is Hmong or who is Thai. So coming to a village that's like just all Hmong was really, I feel like, rewarding, because one of the reasons why I came here was because I kind of wanted to trace back my roots. My parents immigrated from Thailand to America after the Vietnam War. So definitely seeing how they are living, or like being able to talk to someone that knows my language, it's definitely something that I'm glad that I'm able to experience. And this is our classroom.
All right, so just to give you a little bit of introduction to our site, Mark, this is a perfect slide for you to talk a little bit about why Chiang Mai, why this is a great location.
Thailand in general occupies a very kind of unique place in Southeast Asia. And when you're studying development in general, there's a lot of issues that you don't necessarily see in Thailand. They've done a very good job of, for example, basic public health services are really excellent. Basic literacy is very high. Basic education is very high, and things like that. You still find pockets throughout the country of, poverty and other issues like that. But Thailand's kind of stepped up from the real basic classical developing country. But now they're facing a lot of other issues that developing countries will face as they urbanize more, as they industrialize more and develop their economy more. So it's a really interesting place to study it. There's a lot going on in northern Thailand. Chiang Mai, as you can see from the map, is in the middle of northern Thailand. It's been a crossroads of Southeast Asia and Asia more generally for hundreds of years. The city was founded 700 years ago. It's incredibly ethnically diverse, not just with, Khon Mueang or northern Thai people, but also there is a long history of people coming here from all over Asia. There's a lot of expats and people from Africa and South America and Europe and other places. So it's a very interesting city with a lot of diversity. The other thing that makes Chiang Mai and northern Thailand so great is, well, two things in particular. One is that we're in an area ecologically that is also a crossroads. It's neotropical or tropical, depending on who you're talking to. But we're surrounded by mountains. There's a lot of ecological variation. The city is quite developed, so you can go in literally an hour from in the center of the city, sipping a bespoke coffee in a really hip cafe, and then an hour later you're in what seems like an extremely remote hill tribe village practicing agricultural practices that haven't changed for hundreds of years. So that's pretty unique. The other thing that's great about Chiang Mai, especially for the MSID program, is northern Thailand has always had a lot of activists, and because of that, there's a lot of NGOs and other organizations based out of Chiang Mai. So there are several universities in the city that we partner with. There are a lot of NGOs that are doing a lot of very interesting and creative development work. We have lots of, for the students who are in the health sciences or vet sciences, there's clinics, there's health centers all over the city and outside the city. So there's a lot of diversity here. Ethnically, there's diversity in terms of development levels. There's diversity in terms of like rural, urban, and then also ecological diversity as well. So it's actually a really fascinating place to run a program like this. And I think that's part of the reason that the program is done as well as it has, is is quite a bit of diversity, which means both it's interesting for the students, but also allows us to put students into some really unique placements that would be hard to do in other contexts.
So the MSID Thailand team is made up, I would say, of two teams, the team that's US based and then the team that of course is in Thailand. So in terms of the US based staff, that's a team of 3 people. So that's going to be myself as the program director. So in terms of things that I'm seeing working with the program, that's going to be academics, finances, health and safety, and student issues. Your students are overwhelmingly going to be working with my colleague, Ryan McCarthy, who's in this picture in the green shirt. And he's going to be the first contact for program questions, advising. We both work together to lead the orientation. Just a little bit about Ryan. He lived in China, I believe, for several different years, teaching over English over there, has been to Thailand several different times, and most recently traveled with, oh gosh, Mark, when we were there, 2019, I think, was when we were there last. So February 2019. Yeah. And has been working with this program specifically for a few years now, a couple of years. Students will also work with Abby, and she is our enrollment specialist. And so students are going to be reaching out to her with enrollment processing questions, basically anything having to do with their application, the submission of materials, those types of things. So we're basically the 3-person team that makes up their contacts here in the United States.
The ISDSI team, I'm the resident director. I'm the executive director of ISDSI. Our associate director, A and I have been working together off and on for 20 years now. And my background, like I said before, I've lived here 20 years. I'm a sociologist specializing in development studies, and have done a lot of work in community-based development, and especially working on research and evaluation and program assessment. So know a lot and have worked with a lot of NGOs, large multilateral organizations, UN, World Bank, groups like that. Our associate director, Supawadi, all Thai people, just as an aside, pretty much have a nickname. So Supawadi is her formal name, but also she goes by A. And Ajahn, as you'll see in the slide there, means professor. So Ajahn A is our associate director. She also has a long experience with development. She started out as a Peace Corps language trainer, which, as an aside, has been fantastic because now we have access to some of the best Thai language instructors in the entire country. She's also got a lot of experience working with NGOs. She's worked with everything from refugee projects to women's issues to human trafficking and related areas, so that A and I are colleagues. We develop the programs together. She has a lot of experience with that. And her role primarily is to focus on placing students into the internships, because she has such a deep experience of working with NGOs. She knows a lot of people, and Thai culture, like a lot of places, is built on relationships. So she's able to talk to friends of hers and colleagues of hers and find really creative placements for our students. We have 2 other staff that primarily focus on MSID. Wan Lee and Dodo are both 2 of our teams that work with MSID. They both have degrees, advanced degrees. Wan Lee is in medical science, and Dodo is a public health and epidemiology. An outstanding person to have on your team when COVID hit. And they both teach on the program. They both work directly with students. Dodo, for example, will teach our public health track. And they're both able to really they actually do a really, really good job working with the students, kind of opening up what's happening in Thailand and helping them as they figure out what's going on with the classes, with internships, with the living situation, all the different parts that come into it.
MSID Thailand offices and classrooms. So like Mark said, we basically base the MSID Thailand program with ISDSI out of their offices. So students take classes there. The program center is, I just have to say, it's amazing. And it's one of the reasons why I think we get so many design and architecture students who are really interested. But these are just some of the basic amenities. I think, Mark, you went through this past year and made it ADA accessible as well, too, correct?
That's correct. We modified it, so we have a lift in it.
Is there anything else you want to say about the program center before I play the video?
No, I think go ahead and play the video, and if there's anything it doesn't hit, I'll mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you see a little bit on the video, you can see on the still of this here. We have a small campus, and on the campus we have the ISDSI building. We have a mix of conference size rooms to a large seminar room that you saw on the top floor, and then a lot of smaller classrooms that we use for language classes, as well as we use for breakout classes for the different focused courses that students would be doing. We have a cafe on site. We, in the last few years, have started working with some local communities. So we're roasting our own coffee every week from some of the communities that we work with. So we're integrating that into what we're doing. We also have a gym, a CrossFit box on site. So there's a lot of opportunities for students on the campus itself to, not just come to class, but there's other stuff going on so it makes it a much more attractive place for them to come and hang out.
Yeah. I think you also see some of those connections. So with the coffee roasting and those connections directly to farmers, certainly you see some of that being used within one of our classes, especially the entrepreneurship track, which looks at agriculture and business. So it's really a great site to kind of focus on these more specific themes, which I think we're talking about next. In terms of the structure of the semester, you're going to find this across the board on all MSID programs. Essentially, that first week, you're going to have a week-long orientation. Then you have 7 weeks of classes. During that 7 weeks of intensive coursework, and we do tell students it is intensive. You're taking essentially a semester-long course and condensing it into 7 weeks. So you're doing the historical and political context course. You're doing whichever theme course that you're choosing for international development, and then you're doing your language intensive. It is important to recognize that Thai most students have not studied Thai. It is a difficult language to learn. And we always tell students going into this, no one is expecting you to come out of this experience like fluent in Thai. It's just not going to happen. But we do expect students to be open to the experience and utilizing their Thai, as opposed to just depending on their English. And then for the next 6 weeks, students move into the internship or research phase. Historically, we've always encouraged students to both compare the urban as a part of the urban location. So Chiang Mai as maybe their base for the classes, and then go into a more rural location. I think what's great is Mark has added in basically it's a site visit or excursion that takes students to a rural village so they can get kind of a preview of what rural Thailand looks like. And I think that makes students a bit more comfortable in selecting that option as an experience for their research or their internship. And then students come back to the urban base, so back to Chiang Mai, to kind of decompress and discuss everything and debrief their experience before they prepare to leave. So just to give you a little bit of background on the historical and political context of Thailand, the idea is that I always say, I think it's interesting when it comes to this program, because I feel like what students know about Thailand, they know through like Instagram or maybe travel TV shows. So we want to get them a bit more of an in-depth idea of the country that they're going to be working in, especially if you're going to be hoping to do research or an internship in a place related to development. It's important that they have a context for the culture and the country that they're in. So certainly this is going to cover historical, economic, political context. So students have the background that's necessary and the understanding that's necessary for them to be able to interact with people from a completely different culture, and have at least a little bit of background going into the internship that they're going to be doing, internship or research. Then you have the international development course. So our themes break out into these 4 specific courses. So for entrepreneurship, we have entrepreneurship and sustainable food systems. For the health track, we have One Health, human, animals, and the environment. For human rights, we focus on human rights in marginalized communities. I think we'll see a lot of students who are of Hmong heritage specifically who are kind of interested in that track. And then we have sustainability. We've decided to take the approach of looking at sustainability from architecture and design.
One of the strengths of the MSID program is that you get the big overview, right? The context course gives you kind of that big overview of what's happening in the country. And then you're immediately drilling down into development and to these 4 specific themes. It's really interesting because I find that this helps the students, I think, or we've found anyway, that this helps the students really pay better attention in their other classes because they're tracking towards their internship. And like Vanessa said, Thai is not an easy language to master, but it has a high initial barrier to entry because it's tonal and they don't use a Roman alphabet. But going back to Ajahn A and her experience with the US Peace Corps, we use a Peace Corps teaching methodology, and that allows our students to get up to speed fairly quickly. They're not, like Vanessa said, going to come out being fluent Thai speakers, but they'll be functionally conversation. So they are able to be in situations without English and still be able to function and carry on life. So it's really cool because there's not a lot of English in a lot of the organizations in Thailand. And when you're drilling down on these 4 specific areas, we can connect students to very specific internships based on these things.
So speaking of the internships and the research, this gives you basically a big breakdown of what students are going to be doing for that 6 weeks that they are basically just focusing on this. So students are going to work, they're doing their research, they're working at their internship or at their site, and they're basically working on their final project for the class, which is typically a paper that they end up coming back to present about. Students do have the option of deciding to stay in Chiang Mai for their placement, and in some cases that makes a lot of sense. But we do also always encourage students to look at smaller areas or more rural areas as well. There are just going to be certain things that depending on your background, you're going to have to go to a rural area. Students who are likely interested in agriculture are probably going to end up in a rural area. If you're really interested in working at an elephant hospital, you're likely not going to be able to do that in an urban area. So there are just certain realities that come with certain placements. In terms of internships, when I'm talking to students, I tell students, think of the internship as being at a location and kind of interacting with more of the day-to-day and maybe more hands-on kind of experience. Whereas if you're looking at doing research, you're kind of coming in already with an idea that you may want to focus on. And it's more so researching, watching, and observing what the actions are of an organization and reporting back on that. Students have had some pretty interesting internships. Like I said, we had one student who did one at an architecture firm and then came back to Thailand later on. I think was teaching at Chiang Mai University in the architecture department for a while. We've had several different students who've been able to work at different organic farms, which I think has been really cool. I believe prior to the pandemic, we had some students who were placed in clinics and things like that, doing education. And we do tend to have a lot of students who are interested in going and working specifically with the Hmong population in Thailand too, which I think is really, really cool and great to do.
The design of the MSID program is really good because, you know, everything's building on itself. You know, you're layering. So you've got language as kind of your base of how to live and learn in Thailand. You've got the course on the politics and history of Thailand, which gives you kind of the broader context. And then you get into a very specific area of development. And then all of that is applied into the internship. So for the students who are really engaged and interested in their topics, they can get into it right away. So the internship is kind of how that plays itself out. Like Vanessa mentioned, we did add a couple years ago a week-long field study with the students into a village. And the villages here, for the most part, are very warm and welcoming. We have good relationships with a lot of communities. And the other thing with the internships, I'll just mention Ajahn A, who I've talked about before. She does a phenomenal job of doing the placements. And Thailand doesn't have internship openings like you might have in some other countries, or certainly in the United States. So every time an intern is placed, it is someone will say, okay, let's see what projects we have. Let's see where a student can come alongside what we're doing and be engaged with what we're trying to accomplish as an organization. So it's a really nice partnership.
I think another thing that's just important to remember, as I heard you mentioning working with local organizations, with MSID programs, and this is across the board, we do work with grassroots organizations. And so students who are interested in being placed at like the WHO or the WTO, things like that, those are not going to be sites that match basically the goals and the aesthetic of what we are trying to accomplish with the MSID program. So students are placed at locations where their work is needed and it will be appreciated and they will get that hands-on experience. All right, and so we do have another video that's just talking a little bit about student perspectives on academics and excursions. So I will play that right now.
Because there's only 11 of us, the classroom's really small. For some, we were all together. And then for some of our classes, we broke off into specific tracks. My entrepreneurship class, I was the only student there with a business major. And so I took that track and I was the only student in my class. And so I got to like ask questions that I wouldn't feel comfortable asking in a big group.
Thai class was, awesome. The teacher, we had a phenomenal teacher. He was very down to earth, very funny, learned a lot. It was really difficult because Thai is not the easiest of languages, but definitely very helpful to be in a classroom setting.
We did a lot of experiential learning. So on Fridays, as a whole school, we would go out to like a farm or an area of the community that shows a good example of sustainability in Thailand. So we would learn about something throughout the week and then go see it in action on Friday, which was really special. And you remember the things you learn a lot better. Being there 6 weeks, learning in the classroom, and then going out into our internship where we're kind of on our own in a new place with no help, you're sort of forced to speak the language. Our internships in Thailand were really fun. So I went to a village that was known. It was kind of like this poster child for community-based tourism in Thailand. I essentially just became a member of a village. When tour groups would come, I would help serve food. I would help explain what the village was all about. I made promotional materials for them in English. So I made them a website in English. I made them a Facebook in English as a way to kind of get the word out about them.
We went to this province called Bai. We just like rented out bikes and we biked all throughout the countryside. So I think that's one of my favorite memories.
We went to a conservation camp, a place that rescued elephants that were used in tourism and other things and rehabilitated them. And so we got to go there for the day and learn how to take care of them, feed them, bathe them, and then ride on them. And that was like one of the most fun things I think I've ever done.
So just as we're getting ready to close out, just to touch on a few things, basic health and safety. All students on any Learning Abroad Center program are going to be covered by CISI insurance, and essentially that is going to be a comprehensive health and safety and security insurance. It essentially will cover basically anything except for kind of preventative treatment. We do have a disclosure process. Basically, it's a health information form that we ask all students to fill out after they've been accepted into the program. That information is shared with on-site, and it's used by both Ryan and I to just meet with students and have conversations in order to prepare them for the realities of the location that they're going to. I know, for example, I know that we get a lot of students who have asthma, and so that's something that we want to talk to them about, because there are going to be certain times of the year where, you know, things could just be a little bit more difficult in terms of breathing. So just prepping them for some of the realities of on-site. Historically, there has been a coordinated flight that we have organized for students, at least until things change and we're told otherwise. There's going to be a coordinated flight that students are taking from LAX to Bangkok, and then there will be another flight that they take from Bangkok up to Chiang Mai, and they will take that as a group after they've quarantined for 2 weeks. In addition to the coordinated flight, there's going to be a comprehensive on-site orientation that students will do. All students will have to be, this is a requirement as well, any independent travel that students do, they have to register. We have to talk about coronavirus. It's a reality of what we're working with right now. We basically are going to be following on-site realities and public health directives that are basically the local public health directives. Just wanted to finalize things by talking a little bit about access and diversity abroad. Both staff here in the Learning Abroad Center and our staff in Thailand are well equipped to help students through some of these conversations of intersectional identities and diversity and issues and things like that. And yeah, and once again, a lot of this is going to be covered as a part of the health information form, but a lot of this is stuff that we talk about as a part of orientation too. And then all of the staff make ourselves readily available, and we're happy to have these conversations with students prior to departure so that they can feel comfortable as much as possible going into a situation like this.
Thanks for joining us. Please reach out if you have any questions.